When you don't have much to work with and yet need to solve a problem, you often need to think outside of the box. Many would attribute this as humanity's most defined trait, a species that didn't even know they had nothing to work with until they finally met someone else. This came to light and to a head during the Terran Trade War, a war the humans were not even aware they were fighting in until it was almost over. Xander's thrills splayed as blood flooded to them and turned them into an angry shade of purple. A mute rage was washing over him, his assistants trying to hide their discomfort at the bad news they delivered him, and yet knowing they couldn't simply leave. They knew he needed someone to yell at. Who the shit-eaters do they think they are? This is criminal, an undercut of our trade, an attack on our species, he yelled, a horrible stench washing over all present, ineffectively combated by the assistants who knew not to react. Are they flaunting their power since they are new on the scene? Is their intent to drive us out of the market, content on the short-term losses, knowing of the long-term gains? How the shit have the administrators not put a hold on their trade? The assistants bristled, their own thrills briefly flashing emotions before one was brave enough to speak up. President, sir, the administrators are still looking into this. They would bar them, but the Terrans claim they make a profit. Something that... A profit? He screeched, his voice trailing off so high that it cut out of their hearing range. His muted rage has exploded, his anger before just the tip of an iceberg that now showed its size. I've already done the math. At best, if we cut every corner we can, they will still be 23% cheaper than we can selling it without any loss or profit. And yet they have the audacity to claim they make a profit? Is their empire built on slaves? Do they seek to destroy our way of life? Do they? His tirade was cut short by his own lackluster breath, the president of the company visibly deflating as his body ran out of the energy his outburst was sustained on. A different scent flooded the room, a cold, lethal intent, as the president sat there, sunk into his chair. If it's a trade war they want, it's a trade war they'll get, he mumbled, looking at the report once more before eating it. Dyson, ask the central bank to put a hold on outgoing transactions in relation to this. Claim that the customers could be getting scammed due to the absurd price. Jailer, drop everything your department is working on and investigate these Terrans. I want to know their culture, their history. I want to know everything I can, so that we may hopefully exploit something. Hargath, have your team do a full analysis of their products, confirm quality and confirm reliability. I want to know if we can spin that our products are superior and have facts and studies to back it up. For now, market the fact that our products are homegrown or some shit like that. That people should support your own species, keep money local. You know the spiel. We need to offset as much as we can. We need to see if we can bleed them first. We can't let them win so soon. Half a year later. This administration means to regulate the dispute between the Terran Trade Association, who stands accused of undercutting local businesses and corporations, by the likes of the Refined Ore Initiative, Simple Pure Gas and Micro Machines, who all stand as accusers. Minister 1 droned, a level of professional indifference and unbiasedness radiating out from him. It was a great and respected position to hold, and while not one supported by the law, it had enormous political sway. Their suggestions on how to end the conflict or their findings would lay the groundwork for any future disputes or legal action if it was needed. The Terran representative knew all of this due to their extensive research into them when they were told their products were being barred from the market. They obviously fought against this, but the administration was firm in their suggestion and told the Terrans that in 4 months' time they could present their case and facts could be laid out for all to see. The only reason it wasn't earlier was so that both sides could better prepare for what might be their only chance to prove their side. The Terrans thought it a bit old-fashioned, but nonetheless prepared their case, still confused up until the day of the meeting about where the problem even stemmed from. Having memorized the opening of the case and customs, the Terran representative put his hands to the side of his head and splayed them like the frills the locals had. Wiggling his fingers, he then bowed, an action mimicked by the administration, though just by using their frills. The Terran Trade Association thanks you for your time and attention. I would like to first state that we are sorry for the problems we may have caused. As you know, we are still new and learning things about our intergalactic neighbours. This was our first trade route we had established and hoped to learn and connect. Instead, we accidentally started a trade war, and for that we are deeply sorry. My second point is to refrain from insinuating that we stock and use slaves. Such a barbaric practice has been abolished for nigh a millennia, and to suggest someone does so is a grave insult at best, and at worst perhaps a reason for war, if it's true. The representative explained in a neutral voice. Some heated talks already breaking free, though not enough to address. My third point and question, something that we hope will clear the waters around this issue, is the fact of shipping costs. We've combed through and crunched numbers on publicly available information about said shipping costs, and corroborated the results against information obtained by a company who wishes to remain anonymous, the rep said, clicking a button and a graph appearing on screens that everyone could see. Here we have shipping costs for a year. Notice peak seasons such as holidays where workers cost more, or dips where supply starts to outstrip demand. He clicked the button again, now a line almost matching the graph appearing over it. This line is the data from the company who elected to share with us. It shows us that while the public information is close, it suggests that public records are a bit skewed towards saying that more was spent than there actually was. However, this information is still good enough to base our findings off of. Please note we have taken the fact we only have one private data point into account in these calculations. It clicked a button again and a new line appeared, much further down near the bottom of the graph, only peaking minutely at what seemed like random times. This new line is the average cost of Terran shipping. As you can see, on average, it is less than a tenth the cost of... That is a falsehood! Someone called from the accuser group. A large male stood up, the one spearheading the entire thing. Xanth. Such a low shipping cost is impossible. The price of fuel alone is a good 2/3 the cost, and crew and maintenance is the other third. We've been doing this for a century or so. Do you really think we wouldn't have made it as efficient as we could? He accused, his frills flashing in anger, though thankfully no foul smell came from him this time. President Xanth, we ask you to refrain from outbursts in the middle of presentations. Questions will come after, for your question might be answered in the next few seconds, Minister Force scolded, with her voice even yet firm. However, the point is valid. Such a low shipping cost seems like a statistical error, or a purposeful deceit created in order to prove your point. What evidence do you have to back up these claims? The Terran rep stood calm at the outburst, and bowed again in acknowledgement at the administrator's question. Well, as our friend Mr. Xanth politely pointed out, your cost for fuel is 2/3 the entire cost of shipping. For us, these costs are as little as only a tenth of our operational costs. The other almost 90% is entirely maintenance costs. We do not have a crew in our freight, as the ships are run by an AI, whose payment is non-monetary, and through these factors we are able to reduce our costs to such levels. Through the use of the shortcut drive, we're able to make many trips in quick succession, and holding the shortcut open requires substantially less fuel than what you claim to use. While we understand the crew factor, we simply don't understand where the absurd amount of fuel usage you claim to use comes from. The rep answered, to a room of silent aliens, his face cool and calm, and yet, as the seconds dragged by, wondered if he had said something wrong. Finally, a voice was heard. Shock and confusion mixed in his thrills, as President Xanth spoke again. What's a shortcut drive? That day marked the end of the Terran trade wars, and the day the universe learned that humanity hailed from a dead zone. A zone so lifeless and dull that it was believed that anything that somehow sprung to life within would be unable to ever leave. It was essentially the gravity wells of faster than light travel, something you could fall into but be unable to get out of if you did. It made the Terrans think faster than light travel impossible, something they held true in their pockets of the universe. They couldn't understand why their theories did not work. Stuck in their systems and sending sub-light generational ships out to nearby stars to colonize was the norm for almost a millennia. It took them almost 800 years to pioneer something new, something so outside the box that it would have been considered lunacy, if not for the real working drives produced by this fervent dream. They had given birth to the shortcut drive while stuck in what had been considered a dead zone, a piece of technology that would revolutionize space travel. At first, however, it was hard to understand how it really worked. Only a few species were willing to dissect and study it after its accidental reveal. In time, they realized the brilliance and lunacy of it. It wasn't impossible, but it seemed like it should be. The drive worked on a basic principle, that the universe we inhabit is a three-dimensional one, but that if it was two-dimensional, you could do weird things with it. It was proposed that if you could theoretically turn the universe into something that resembled two-dimensional while retaining the abstract thought of three dimensions, then you could twist the plane the universe was on, bending it, warping it, and folding it back in on itself so that the plane intersected with itself. This intersection wouldn't do anything by itself save weaken space, but with something that could tear the fabric of the universe, even just a tiny amount. You could tear this intersection open to the edges and travel from one point in the universe to another instantly. This had limitations, of course, mainly in the form of time taken to get everything to work, but once that hole was torn, and the planes remained bent, the shortcut would remain open with next to no energy requirements. One caveat was that when things travelled through this shortcut, they might experience their two-dimensional existence for a fleeting fraction of an instant. The effect was seemingly random, but ultimately non-dangerous, though motion sickness was a common side effect. This was all explained by a scientist on the Terran Trade Association, who could only explain it at a surface level. He further stated that he knew the drive itself existed in 2 dimensions, and not 3, and that's how it twisted the plane, but ultimately couldn't explain anything more. As the interest in this revolutionary new drive started to die down, different things once glossed over during this rabid thirst for knowledge seemed to ignite the galactic consciousness once more. Things like quantum computing, artificial intelligence, and extreme efficiency energy collectors such as Dyson spheres continue to surprise and astound scientists and the public alike. Of course, as a whole, the galactic community were millennia ahead of humanity in general, but sometimes the humans would mention something or think of a new way to do something that no one had ever thought of before, and would once again accidentally revolutionize something. It paid in droves to have an entire race who constantly tried to think outside of the box, or make their lives just a little easier.